Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 13th day of June in the year of our Lord 2025. Yes, it's Friday the 13th, so we'll see. I will be talking about the riots in LA currently going on, as well as attempts to put them down with National Guard troops and even U.S. Marines, and what that portends for America and for our future. I am recording this Castle Report as the chaos and anarchy rages on in the once great and beautiful city of Los Angeles, California. Those words, chaos and anarchy, were the words chosen by Senator John Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania. Quote, I unapologetically stand for free speech, peaceful demonstrations, and immigration, but this is not that. This is anarchy and true chaos. My party loses the moral high ground when we refuse to condemn setting cars on fire, destroying buildings, and assaulting law enforcement, end quote. Senator Fetterman's party, the Democrat Party, at least the California branch of it, is apparently convinced they are gaining a political advantage from the pain they have inflicted on their city and their state. Governor Gavin Newsom is treating the event as a campaign launch for the 2028 Democrat nomination for the office of president. He makes tearful speeches. He blusters like a tough guy, saying, go ahead and arrest me. Get it over with. I guess he thinks we're all just on pins and needles waiting for his martyrdom. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, at least she's president in the state, unlike when she allowed two of the most beautiful cities in America, Pacific Palisades and Malibu, to burn to the ground just a few weeks ago. She's at least currently here in the state country. She and Governor Newsom turned in mutually disgraceful performances by allowing the city to burn. Now, well, they seem to have some weird affinity for fire, don't they? Newsom and Bass together have only one answer to the problems of Los Angeles. That is, Trump did it. They have no answers, no policy positions, no policy solutions. Just Trump must be responsible for everything. The recent presidential election, even current polling data seem lost on them. Never mind the reverse morality of letting your city be overrun by people crossing the border illegally. They don't see the effect that thousands of people flying Mexican flags while burning cars, attacking police, looting, etc., has on the rest of the country. The optics are very bad, but they just don't get it. They say the protests are peaceful. It's just overexuberance. While in the background fires are burning, it reminds me of the scene from the movie Police Story where Leslie Nielsen's character says, nothing to see here, folks, just move along, nothing happening here. While in the background there's a view of Warsaw that looks like the Germans just invaded. Bass and Newsom are representatives of many politicians who focus on power plays of jurisdictional dispute, efforts to appeal to emotions for people who don't want to go back to where they came from, while Mr. and Miss Average America are focused on the need for law and order. It's pretty easy for a person living in my city of Memphis to see those videos and conclude, well, thank God I don't live in L.A., where the politicians don't seem to care anything about the people who elect them, except to use them as political talking points and numbers. For a few days after the presidential election, it appeared that Newsom was pretending to move closer to the center because he noticed, perhaps, that the results of pretending to be on the extreme left were bad. Perhaps he noticed that illegal immigration was the number one issue to normal Americans. So these riots were a perfect chance for him to appear sane. Just say a few words, Governor, a few words that might lead someone to think you care about law and order. Just give the appearance that you care about the lives and property of the people of California. But no, you just can't seem to do that. You can't read the handwriting that is clearly on the wall. Instead of law and order, you say this, quote, he's exacerbated the conditions. He's lit the proverbial match. He's putting fuel on this fire. Donald Trump needs to pull back. He needs to stand down. Donald Trump is inflaming these conditions. This is Donald Trump's problem right now, and if he can't solve it, we will, end quote. This man, Gavin Newsom, pitifully out of touch with the reality of the situation. His regrets are not of the people whose property is being destroyed, and certainly not for ICE agents and other law enforcement who are targeted for doing their jobs. people across the country could see this slick politician for what he really is. If you want to talk about a bad look, just look at the videos of people burning cars, throwing rocks, looting wrecked businesses, all while waving Mexican flags. As the Babylon Bee, paraphrasing George Bush, put it, they do the rioting Americans just won't do. These people obviously had difficult or unhappy circumstances in their own country, so they came here without the legal necessity of applying for entry. They riot. Write death to America on the buildings they burn, so one has to ask, why are you here? If you hate America, why are you here? Why do you resist going back to the place that you obviously love and prefer? Why do you resist with violence the efforts of law enforcement to give you an all-expense-paid trip back to where you came from? Normal people must wonder, how could you choose foreign rioters over your own people? Isn't your first obligation to your own people? Your own would be your family, of course. First, that's your wife or husband, your children. Shouldn't they come first? Those around you similarly situated. If someone kicked in your door and invaded your home, would you mind? If someone kicked in your door, set fire to your car and your home, would you mind? If someone burned your business, destroyed your financial way of life, would that bother you? Would you mind? If someone raped your wife or your children, would you mind? Would that bother you? Saying all that leaves me with a question, and that is how you could choose people who do that over us normal people. I just don't get it, folks, because many people repeatedly vote for politicians who pledge to do just that. I mean, by that, choose the perpetrators of violence and chaos over normal people. The situation is going down a very scary path. We might never be able to recover as people. The scary path is that Steve Bannon just might be right. Maybe we are at war. We are obviously constantly at war abroad, as in Ukraine, and a never-ending struggle for dominance in the Middle East, but the war against Western civilization is being fought in our streets right now. War is terrible. It's a terrible thing. Total war, i.e., fully committed resources, is designed to kill and to destroy. It doesn't care who gets killed. For example, the last total war was World War II. In that struggle, the Allies sent 1,000 bombers in a single raid over German cities with incendiaries and high explosives, which killed hundreds of thousands of people. Were those civilians on the ground under the bombs innocent? That depends on how you look at it, I guess, because the people at home knew that if their own people were to be spared, that war had to be won. They had an advantage over the normals of today, and that was almost universal agreement on who should win the war. Now, after decades of propaganda in the schools under Marxist professors with almost total media ownership by the left, it's a different situation. Even with all that, I still don't get it. The people burning cars, throwing rocks, destroying a once great city, all while waving the flag of a foreign nation, I don't get the attraction. My first reaction to anarchy and true chaos is apparently different from that of almost 50% of the population. My first thought is, if they are illegal, send them back. If they're criminals, put them in prison, then send them back, unless you can work out a deal, as was done with El Salvador, to imprison them there. The Castle Report, this Castle Report then, is not so much a report on what is happening, but instead my opinion of what it all means. For example, this weekend, the U.S. Army will celebrate 250 years of its existence. That is, 250 years of sacrifice for our freedom and our way of life in order to preserve it for future generations. I know what you're thinking. It's that many of those wars were unnecessary. I'm not talking about the politicians who start the war. I'm talking about the soldiers. They believe they're fighting for freedom and our way of life when they fought the enemies assigned to them by their civilian leadership. This same weekend, we celebrate the Army. The Revolutionary Forces burning Los Angeles have announced a nationwide series of street protests which have a chance of morphing into L.A. and your neighborhood, folks. Right now in Los Angeles, we have a kinetic battlefront in the ongoing war against the United States of America itself. This war is an effort designed to destroy this country so that it can fit nicely into the Great Reset of the World Economic Forum and Agenda 21, or now 2030. of the United Nations, as well as whatever exists in the satanic minds of George Soros and Bill Gates. This appears to me to be a well-organized resistance movement against the United States as a country. I've seen many videos, tactical gear of the kind the military uses being delivered to the rioters, new, still in the original boxes. It has been planned all right, and so the question is how we resist. I suggest it should not be by electing more Gavin Newsoms. His reaction is to file a lawsuit against President Trump. I have a copy of that lawsuit on my desk. I've read it, but I decided not to spend my time on it today. In conclusion, folks, the effort to rip America apart from the inside out by tearing apart the very souls of our people must be resisted. I haven't even mentioned the deployment of thousands of National Guard as well as 700 U.S. Marines from the 1st Marine Division, that proud division that invaded so many Pacific Islands. The President said the Marines are there to protect federal property. I'm certain they can do that. I have some experience with the Marine Corps. I know that in my day we were offensive troops. You did not send us. You didn't call us unless you wanted people to be dead. Deploying active duty military inside the U.S. is problematic, granted, unless this really is war. Finally, folks, do we have the right to have our own country? Do we have the right to exist as people who live in freedom, people who leave others alone to do the same? I submit we do. I recommend we get to work preserving that right now. At least that's the way I see it. Until next time, folks, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.